All right, let's talk about the scouting from the Dolphins 13-6 preseason week 2 win over the Washington Commanders. There are several interesting notes from this game to go over for fantasy. A couple of game changers and some other interesting fantasy 2024 and Dynasty impact notes. But let's start with the biggest takeaway, the most interesting thing I think came from this game: the Miami backfield. I was not shocked to see Raheem Mostert go out with the first team. The first team offense was playing for Miami. Mostert was in the backfield to start. Not a total shock. If I would have seen Achane be back there, that would be other interesting news, but not surprised that it was Mostert. But what I was surprised about was that it was Mostert and Mostert again and Mostert again. There was no rotation on the first series where Achane had come in, Mostert come in. There was none of that. It was all Mostert on a pretty quick series. Now, in the preseason, they can be giving a running back an entire series to themselves to get work in and not bother with the whole in and out thing. I get that. But it wasn't until the second series that we even saw Achane come in, and then I believe Mostert came back in again for a couple of plays. Like, out of the gates, it was mostly Mostert, and then Achane was in for like a play. Then Mostert was done, and Achane then started to take over for a few plays and a few touches. But Mostert getting the majority of the snaps and touches between the two of them is interesting, because you wouldn't think that Mostert would necessarily need the extra work. So any thoughts of this backfield maybe being an Achane-led backfield from the jump? It looks like they're going to go with Mostert. Obviously productive last year. All good things said by Mike McDaniels in the offseason. So Mostert's going to be his guy, and this looks like it is headed towards not only a two-headed monster backfield, but three-headed monster backfield with Jalen Wright. The interesting thing for Achane that came about from this, while he wasn't starting, while Mostert seemed to be that lead guy, and I don't know to what degree they're going to split the carries there, but you can tell they're not shying away from Mostert, is all the talk about Achane being more involved in the passing game, which I've been talking about since last year. It came to fruition in this game. They specifically worked on Achane in the passing game. He was only in for a few snaps, and obviously after Mostert, but when he was in the game, he got 3 targets, had 2 catches, and he looks good. I mean, he was essentially a quasi wide receiver in this game, which brings an interesting element for his fantasy scoring opportunity in 2024, especially in PPR. He may not be getting a load of carries that you'd want to see from a higher ADP running back, but if he's gonna get 3, 4, 5 catches a game as a quasi wide receiver, and he looks kind of like a second Tyreek Hill out there, you just got to get him the ball and let him go out in space. And that's what he did in this little preseason effort. He might make up his points through the pass catching with the reduced run opportunity. They're not going to use Mostert that way, and they're not going to use Jalen Wright that way. So my projections are going to definitely jumble up a little bit more, moving the meter more towards the running for Mostert, and I was already in on the passing game for Achane, but I'll probably bump it up a little bit more, but take down his rushing attempts within this. Jalen Wright didn't play; he didn't suit up, so nothing good or bad against him. This was Mostert and Achane. Once they got a couple series and the first team came out, then we started to see Chris Brooks take over at running back. And it looks like Chris Brooks might make this team as the number 4, as the heavy number 4, to bring a different element than what Mostert, Achane, and Wright do. And I've been a fan of Brooks back to last preseason when I swore he looked like a Arian Foster light type of running back. So he brings a totally different element. The other 3 guys are way more exciting, but Brooks has a role, and it was his odds of making the team jumped up by a little bit today because the Dolphins released Salvon Ahmed. So this should be Mostert, Achane, Wright, with Brooks maybe inactive a lot of the games, or just in for some from basic short yardage work, but Mostert can be good with that as well. So Miami running back situation getting a little twisted with how it's going to go. It's still unpredictable at this point. One preseason game doesn't foretell the future, but I think we can take away that Mike McDaniel's going to believe in Mostert as the lead, and he's definitely trying to get Achane involved in the passing game. Second note to go over, Washington quarterback situation. It was announced today Jayden Daniels is the starter. I don't know why that was treated like it was some type of big news. I mean, who was in this race to be with him to be the number 1 quarterback? I mean, Jeff Driscoll's going to be the number 2. So, but it's official. Jayden Daniels is the number 1. But what I really wanted to say about Jayden Daniels, watching him in this game, it was I watched this not too soon after watching Caleb Williams with the Bears in their Week 2 game, and there's such a drastic difference of the way Jayden Daniels handles himself in the pocket, the way he handles himself on a rollout. Jayden Daniels already looks in control of the offense, of the passing game. He's not shy to run it. And when he's stuck in the pocket, he does not do what Caleb Williams does and melt down, tapping the ball 100 times, not being able to see a receiver to throw to, reluctant to let the pass fly because he really can't see. He really can't. Caleb Williams really can't read the defenses well enough on an NFL level to be effective from the pocket. You've got to roll him out or he's dead. Jayden Daniels looked totally comfortable in the pocket, looks totally comfortable rolling out, looks totally comfortable running the ball. Very impressed with Jayden Daniels. I already thought he was the number 1 quarterback in this draft class, and I'm definitely not changing that position. But I thought it was a stark contrast to watch Jayden Daniels be so efficient, and like a Bo Nix when you watch his first 2 preseason games. So efficient, so in charge of the offense, very little mistakes or overthrows or underthrows. Then you watch Caleb Williams and you've got a total scatterbrained mess on your hands. If he doesn't scramble out of the pocket and find ground to be able to run and find something downfield, Caleb Williams is going to be done in this league. And NFL defensive coordinators are going to shut that off when they figure it out. It usually takes them 3, 4, 5 games of tape to realize to just keep Caleb Williams in the pocket and he will melt down. So, not the same with Jayden Daniels. Looked very good again this game against a lot of. I think there was a pretty good amount of some first team defenders playing for Miami against Washington's first team. Third note, Jahan Dotson, the Commanders' man of the hour, not in a good way. Right before this game was played, Dan Quinn was out talking about how essentially Jahan Dotson needed to step it up, which is really just a way of saying what I suspected for the last couple of years, that Jahan Dotson was never worthy of that first round draft pick grade. He wasn't worthy of being drafted in the first round, and he's not important for fantasy football 2024. I thought that before Dan Quinn made these statements. Now it's a given. I mean, you might as well close the book on Jahan Dotson at this point. I mean, he's going down the KJ Hamler path at this stage, and Dan Quinn's words kind of manifested itself in this game because Dyami Brown I believe was starting, and it was Dotson who was in the next series with the next group. When the first teamers left with Jayden Daniels, Dotson was still out there working with the second team for a couple series, and they weren't really throwing him the ball. It wasn't like the second team quarterbacks were trying to make any magic with Jahan Dotson. He is falling down a well for NFL purposes and for fantasy football purposes. I think he's all but dead, and I know from conversations that I had a couple months ago when Washington was trying to get Brandon Ayuk, they offered Jahan Dotson as part of the deal as an offset wide receiver for the 49ers, and the 49ers know what Washington knows, what everybody about in the league knows, that Jahan Dotson's just not that good. So the 49ers were not interested in Dotson being a part of that exchange at all. So I wouldn't be shocked if Washington trades Dotson now that Dan Quinn has come out and said what he said, and Dotson doesn't really seem to be stepping up because he doesn't really have the capacity to step up. I would not be shocked to see him on the move in one way, shape, form, or other before the 53-man rosters get locked in. That's good news for the Washington's second best receiver that they have on the roster, rookie Luke McCaffrey. I think that you could see he has the talent above Dotson, and he has it above Dyami Brown. Dyami Brown has experience, but McCaffrey is way more talented, and McCaffrey had a couple nice catches in this game, but McCaffrey's still working down the chain of the depth chart. He doesn't seem to be in with the ones. I'm sure it will only be a matter of time. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's by week 1. But right now, McCaffrey doesn't seem to be getting the push that Dyami Brown is. But Dyami Brown's going to fall apart just in the same way that Dotson is. They're just not that good. McCaffrey's got a chance to be really good. So Dotson confirmed falling down in Dan Quinn's eyes. You could tell it by this game when he was left in with the backups. Fourth note that I have from this game, the Commanders' running back situation. Brian Robinson started. Then I think Austin Eckler came in on the third down. So through the first 2 weeks, they've shown that this is going to be a true split. With Eckler getting carries, but Eckler also getting more of the passing game work. I would just say, just put this note out there. Watching Austin Eckler in this game, Eckler in week 1 looked pretty good, looked kind of back to his old self, but it was a brief appearance and I wanted to see more. There was a running play in this game for Eckler where you could see he was visibly quicker. He made a move that was like from 3 years ago, Austin Eckler. So whatever Eckler's injury issue was last year that kind of hindered him throughout the season, and he says he's past that injury and he feels better than he has in a long time and that he's 100%. He's certainly looked like it on some plays in this game. So um, I Eckler's back. I don't know that he ever left. He just got a raw deal with trying to fight through an injury and play last season. Then he lost Justin Herbert, and the whole Chargers situation went down the tubes. So Eckler looks like he's going to be very involved and have good potential, especially for PPR this year for Fantasy 24. After the starters, after Robinson and Eckler went, the still running number 3 is Jeremy McNichols, which he's a veteran guy that is always doing well in the preseason but never can seem to catch on to a roster. Maybe he's going to here. They keep having him run as the number 3, but number 4 in the pecking order, when after McNichols, then they'll bring in rookie Michael Wiley. And I like what Michael Wiley's bringing to the table. He looks like he's added about 5 pounds of muscle. He was already a thicker back. He's not, a giant. He's not 220 pounds or anything, but he's like a 205, 210, but really sturdy frame and good movement skills. I think he looks better than McNichols, but McNichols has more experience. So I wouldn't be surprised if McNichols made the team with Wiley as the number 4, but I also wouldn't be surprised if McNichols got cut, because you can cut McNichols and nobody will care. You can put him on the practice squad. Wiley being a draft pick and a younger guy, he may make the team just to protect him, because you can see he's got a chance to be a contributor in the future. The guy that's totally fallen out with the new regime, kind of like even worse than what Jahan Dotson has fallen, is Chris Rodriguez, who looked like he had a promising potential in the last year in spots, but the new regime is not liking anything about him. They always have him in behind McNichols, behind Wiley, then you'll see Rodriguez, and he's not getting much work. So that would put him as the number 5 running back right now, and they're not keeping 5 running backs. They could probably trade Rodriguez to maybe... I wouldn't be surprised if like a Tampa Bay picked up Chris Rodriguez. Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, was at Kentucky for a bit as an offensive coordinator, so he may have some connection or some insight into Chris Rodriguez, and they may give him a shot just to add another body to the running back room and to drive me crazy for Rachaad White purposes. But one way or the other, I don't think Chris Rodriguez is going to be on this team. I don't even think he'll be on the practice squad the way that they're treating him. Fifth note that I had, Jonnu Smith played in this game. He looked good. He had a couple nice plays, but the thing that drew my attention to Jonnu was, as the game went on and the starters went out and then the key backups went out, Jonnu was still working in this game for quite a while, which is surprising for somebody who would be thought to be kind of a starter level player. But he played a decent amount in this game. I don't know if that was just to get him some extra work, or if that's sending a statement that he's just part of the tight end group. He's not a key part of the tight end group for them. But he looked fine, had a couple nice plays, was moving around well. It was curious that he was in the game for so long. Smythe is probably going to start, but he's not a real weapon for fantasy purposes. Jonnu Smith could be interesting for fantasy purposes, but they've got so many weapons to try to get the ball to. I don't know how Jonnu Smith is going to get the ball enough to matter for fantasy this year. My second to last note from this game, a couple of IDP notes, a couple of rookies of note on the Miami defense. Watched Mo Kamara, the pass rusher rookie the Dolphins drafted, and he looked good. It didn't blow me away, but he didn't disappoint me either. Uh, he's got some physical tools. He's quick. He's got moves. He's interesting to me, but in this brief scouting of his work, I thought he was just okay. Nothing, um, nothing amazing, but nothing disappointing. There was a lot more Chop Robinson to look at, and he's you may know I'm not a huge Chop Robinson fan from scouting him in college. I mean, he's got the speed, he's got the look, he's got everything you're supposed to have, except for real production and real ability to get past high level blockers. Now, if you put him against a cement footed blocker, he's gonna blow through and get to the quarterback. He had a play in this game where the his blocker essentially missed the assignment and just let him have a free shot to get into the backfield, and Robinson was in like a blink. So from that perspective, Chop Robinson is neat. But when Chop Robinson is going up against a competent blocker, those blockers just seem to move him out of the play with ease. I mean, having the speed that Chop Robinson has at a 40 time is great, except for when are they ever getting that much free reign to sprint like that? Usually Robinson always tries to go to the outside of the blocker. The blockers then get lock on to him and just kind of nudge him out of the way, and then he's way out of the play and trying to chase it from behind or just watching it. So I'm not a huge Chop Robinson guy, but you could see the speed. You could see he's got something worth investing into, and I wondered pre-draft whether a move to just straight up linebacker might be a place for him instead of being a kind of a smaller but speedy but not that effective pass rusher. But Miami's into speedy things, so they burned a first round draft pick on him. So I'm sure they're going to leave him as a defensive end edge, so trying to be a straight up pass rusher. I just don't think he's going to be that effective. Kind of like that other Penn State guy that went to the Ravens, Owa, whatever his name was. Like he great measurables at the combine, and then but he didn't do squat in college, and he's not really done squat in the NFL. So I'm thinking that's what Chop Robinson's career is going to turn out to be, but we shall see. It's early. I can report he looked fast. Other than that, I wasn't blown away with anything he was doing. Then the last note from this game, just a little minor side note. I don't know who's would consider the kicker for Washington, but Riley Patterson missed a couple of field goals, and I'm noting it for just FYI. This is a random kicker that's missing field goals. I don't think anybody's chasing him unless you're in a super deep fantasy league, but I'm bringing it up just to to reinforce something I wrote about in the Dallas Raiders game report. There are the kickers this preseason. There's a lot of name kickers that are missing a lot of field goals. Koo from Atlanta just went 2 of 5 on field goals in his game on Saturday. McLaughlin from Tampa Bay missed a couple. Matt Gay missed a couple. It's almost like a little mild epidemic going on. The top kickers, the money kickers, do have an advantage in fantasy football. Take them seriously. Riley Patterson is just another example, another reminder that a lot of these non-top tier kickers man, they are just scuffling and they're going to start bouncing around again. Riley Patterson just bounces from team to team to team trying to find a home that he's never going to find because he's too inconsistent. But the reason he gets picked up is there's probably 5 to 10 teams that are worried, that are downright scared of their kicking situation. There's another 10 teams that are like, why is our top experienced productive kicker suddenly missing all of these field goals in the preseason? So don't underweight the value of those top tier kickers that we have ranked in our draft guide. So that is it for this game report. Dolphins versus Commanders. I'll see you on the next game report.